This is PragerU. They are doing a bunch of episodes on like anti-atheist stuff. So let's give this a listen, see what they have to say.
How did we get here? I mean, literally, not just you and me, but the whole shebang. How is any kind of life possible? The universe is a hostile place. Solar flares, cosmic rays, asteroids flying about. The odds against our existence are truly astronomical.
I don't think you have any way of knowing what the odds of our existence are, but okay.
Take it from me. I'm an astrophysicist. My job is to look out into space, at stars and galaxies, trying to answer these basic, how did the universe come to be questions? Well, those who have a religious faith have an answer.
They don't have an answer, though, is the problem. They, what's the word I'm looking for? They push an answer into the spotlight. They're not actually providing a real answer. They're just presupposing an answer. Regarding Brian Keating, I had never heard of this guy. He's a professor of physics at UC San Diego. Born in 1971, specializes in studying the cosmic microwave background radiation to understand the universe's origins. His professional work, public presence, personal background. He's a prominent physicist. Yeah, this is the guy. This is him. I thought maybe it was a different person, but in his PragerU video, he argues basically that both sides require faith. Okay, let's listen.
God, the Earth's distance from the sun, the size of the atom, and 1,000 other things large and small that allow us to live and to breathe and to think, all seem perfectly tuned for our existence. To many, this design suggests a designer. But from a purely scientific point of view, the faithful have a big problem. They can offer no indisputable proof for this belief.
That's correct. It's based on faith. That's what faith means. You have no evidence.
Because of the lack of hard evidence, it's probably not surprising that over 70% of the members of the National Academy of Sciences declare themselves to be atheists. But they have a big problem too. Absent a creator, how do they account for the existence of the universe, of planet Earth, of human consciousness?
Well, we don't. That's the thing. I don't know is the correct answer here. I don't know. And that's a perfectly acceptable answer. You are putting forward an answer with absolutely no basis in reality.
They account for the existence of anything. Well, it turns out they have an answer, and it's become all the rage in scientific circles. It's called the multiverse, and according to many scientists, our universe isn't the whole ballgame. Far from it.
Okay, the multiverse is not an answer, quote unquote. It's a hypothesis, and it's following a scientific possibility, a scientific line. It may be true, it may not be true. I don't know, but it's worth studying and following the rabbit trail to try to see if it is. And you know what? The concept of God is also worth following in a scientific context to see if we can figure out if God is real. And we have for the past 3,000 years, and we've turned up nothing. We have turned up some evidence for the multiverse. Nothing for God. It's fully faith-based. So these two things are different.
These scientists argue that there's an awful lot of universes out there, not just one or two, but an infinite number of them. Let me explain. 13.8 billion years ago, there was a Big Bang. From something unimaginably small, we don't know exactly what, the universe exploded into existence. How did it happen? Why did it happen? It doesn't matter, because it happened.
Well, it does matter, but yeah, I mean, it did happen, obviously. Regarding the multiverse, what I'm reading here, there's a distinction between evidence and proof that's important for understanding the multiverse debate. No direct observational evidence exists. We can't see other universes, detect them, or measure them. By definition, if something is outside of our observable universe, we can't gather data about it. However, the multiverse isn't pulled out of thin air. It emerges as a prediction from theories developed for other reasons. From inflation theory, cosmic inflation developed to explain the uniformity and flatness of our universe, predicts eternal inflation. If inflation happened once, the math suggests it happens continuously in different regions, creating bubble universes. We have strong evidence for inflation itself, the cosmic background patterns, large-scale structure, and the multiverse is a consequence of that math. From quantum mechanics, the many worlds interpretation suggests every quantum measurement spawns branching realities. This isn't the mainstream interpretation, but it's mathematically consistent with quantum mechanics. no additional assumptions needed beyond standard quantum theory. And from string theory, I don't believe is considered, it shouldn't be considered a theory. And I think it's called M theory now, not string theory, because M theory is like the overarching framework that string theory exists within. But anyway, we have mathematical proofs that a multiverse could exist. We're not pulling it out of thin air. That's the bottom line. They are pulling God completely out of thin air, which is fine. Again, that's okay. That's fine with me. You want to believe in God, that's fine. But, don't tell me that scientifically proven things or things that have scientific or things that science suggests could be possible or are likely. Don't tell me that's the same as something you literally just pulled right out of thin air. Well, not literally, but you know what I mean.
Immediately after the Big Bang, the universe underwent a rapid expansion. Think of a gush of bubbles exploding from a seriously shaken soda can just after it's popped open. Cosmologists call this the theory of inflation. As the universe inflates and expands, the bubble universes grow and separate to become their own distinct entities, each with their own unique properties. In other words, new universes are spawned, and not just a handful, an infinite number of them. Some of these universes would be too cold for life and some too hot. But with an infinite number, surely one is bound to get it just right. In short, you and I are just an accident that, given enough universes, was inevitable. But wait, there's more. Because there are so many universes, it's very likely, according to the multiverse scenario, that everything that could possibly happen does happen in one universe or another. That girlfriend who broke up with you, you're married to her in another universe. Does this sound a bit far-fetched, a little too
I mean, you can think it's far-fetched, but we have a basis for this belief. We're not just pulling this out of thin air.
Science fiction-y? Well, not to Nobel Prize-winning scientists like Steven Weinberg or the famed cosmologist Stephen Hawking, as well as a myriad of others who wholeheartedly endorse it. But here's what's really surprising. They endorse it knowing there's not a single shred of hard scientific evidence that supports it.
Again, not hard scientific evidence, but we have mathematical proofs and stuff, which means we don't believe that this is real, but we can accept the possibility of it being real scientifically. That is scientifically sound.
And how can there be? There's no way we can access another universe. In short, a vast number of the world's most eminent scientists believe in something that hasn't been, and in all likelihood will never be proven. How does that sound to you?
I mean, I don't think that it will never be proven. I think that we could prove anything if we put our mind to it.
Probably the same way it sounds to the distinguished physicist Paul Davies. Invoking an infinity of unseen universes to explain the unusual features of the one we do see is just as made up as invoking an unseen creator. The multiverse theory may be dressed up in scientific language, but in essence, it requires the same leap of faith.
No, it doesn't, though, because we have actual mathematical evidence that multiverse could possibly exist. That's very different from God.
Or, as G.K. Chesterton quipped, when men stop believing in God, they don't believe in nothing. They believe in anything. For
I don't know what the fuck that means.
Multiverse believers, this is literally true. The same scientists who reject God's existence due to the lack of evidence pin their hopes on a theory so all-inclusive and vague, it could never be refuted.
But it can be refuted is the problem. The math points to the possibility. Seriously?
Those who believe God created the universe are intellectually honest enough to admit that they do so on the basis of faith. But those who believe in the multiverse are also keeping the faith.
There you go. Everything is a religion. Belief in God is a religion, and science is a religion. Come on.
They just don't admit it. So let me ask you, who's taking the bigger leap? I'm Brian Keating, professor of physics at the University of California, San Diego for Prager University.
Just such a joke.
There's a book you can read to your children that will make your job as a parent a lot easier. This book will teach them lessons in character, how to distinguish right from wrong, about gratitude, respect, and perseverance. And that's in the opening chapters. Parents have been reading this book to their children for a very long time. It's one reason it's a perpetual bestseller.
Is he talking about the Bible? Please don't tell me he's talking about the Bible. The Bible is a vile fucking book. You should not be reading that shit to children. It has some really disgusting shit in there. Like, it has some shit in there that children should not be hearing. Some love poems that are like really disgusting and weird and gross.
This book, of course, is the Bible. And you don't have to be religious to read it, and your children don't have to be religious to enjoy it and get a whole lot out of it.
Trust me, no one is enjoying it.
decency, kindness, charity, selflessness, and
genocide, hate, bigotry. Yeah, that's all in there. Why did you pick the good parts, I'm wondering, instead of the bad parts? Is there a reason?
sacrifice. They're all right there. Consider the story of David and Goliath. 9 feet tall, clad in armor, Goliath is the most fearsome warrior of his day.
And he's murdered viciously and brutally by one of God's main men.
How could he not be? He's 9 feet tall, for goodness sake. Who wants to go against a giant like that? No Israelite, that's for sure. Except for one, a skinny shepherd boy named David. This boy has 3 things going for him: courage, a slingshot, and faith that God is with him.
You know, there was this whole thing, this whole study that people went through a while back to see if it would be feasible to actually nail somebody in the head with a slingshot and kill them. And the answer is yes. Those things are fucking dangerous, actually. You can throw a rock with a slingshot as fast as a bullet. It's crazy how dangerous slingshots can be.
As he strides out onto the battlefield to face Goliath in single combat, he holds the future of the Israelite nation, not to mention his own life, in his hands. Wrapped up in all of this tension and drama are valuable lessons that any child can profit from. David.
Sorry, I mean slings. Yes, slings, not slingshots. They're very different, actually. I said slingshot, and I think they said slingshot, and that's why I said slingshot. But yes, slings.
All of this tension and drama are valuable lessons that any child can profit from. David refuses to be intimidated by a bully. He's willing to act, to show resolve, even in the face of his own self-doubt. His actions paint a portrait of true heroism in the face of true danger. Isn't that the kind of strength we want our children to emulate?
So why aren't you going to read them the sections about how it's good to have an abortion, how you should have an abortion? Numbers 5:11-23. Why aren't you reading the part about them killing Amalekites, murdering them brutally, committing genocide against them and against the Canaanites? Why aren't we reading those sections of the Bible?
To be able to defend themselves and later their families and their country. Or how about the story of the brothers, Cain and Abel? Abel, the shepherd, looks at his lot and he's filled with gratitude for his blessings. He offers as a gift to God the very best of his flock. Cain, the farmer, is selfish, unsatisfied with what he has, and he offers only a paltry gift of grain. When God favors Abel's present, Cain allows jealousy to overwhelm him. God speaks to Cain and tells him, I know you're
Bro, what are these haircuts? They're so bad.
Feeling angry, but you can overcome those feelings and master them. Cain doesn't listen, doesn't control his jealousy, and kills Abel. When God asks Cain, where is Abel, your brother? Cain lies and says, I do not know. And then, am I my brother's keeper? Yes, should have been Cain's answer to his own question. We are responsible for ourselves, and we have an obligation to others. We all have emotions and passions, but God has given us the tools to master those emotions. And master them we must if we are to live a productive and ethical life.
Bro, I'm so fucking lost. Like, what are you even talking about right now?
Most important of all, life is a gift from God. We have no right to take it away from the innocent. Murder is evil. All these lessons are contained in this one story. The stories of David and Goliath and Cain and Abel are only 2 examples of the many invaluable lessons the Bible offers to children. Think of a lesson.
Wait, how was that useful? How was that lesson useful? And also, you derived a moral lesson from that story directly. Like, you could have derived anything from it. You could have derived how murder is good if you wanted. I mean, there are all kinds of things that you could have argued if you had read that to your kid. So why not pick a story that's actually good and maybe even actually real and not fucking psychotic and from an ass-backward society that's like, 2,000 years old or whatever?
There's a Bible story to teach it about family dynamics, friendship, forgiveness, leadership, humility, about what is important and what is not.
Why don't you pick better stories? Some of those stories are fucking vile.
By the way, guys, check out my new shop, owenmorgan.com/shop. I have a bunch of really cool designs on there.
The Bible also teaches children more effectively than any book ever that they are not the center of the universe. They're accountable to their parents and to God. Children who internalize this lesson are much more likely to be kinder and more mindful of how they behave.
Do you have any evidence for that? Children who read the Bible are more likely to be kind. That's not my experience.
Than those who do not. The Bible discourages narcissism. Of course, the Bible is not merely a children's book. It's a library of wisdom for everyone.
It's most definitely not a children's book. And what is with his lips? This is one case in which I believe people should get plastic surgery. Please get plastic surgery, brother. Aside from all of that, it should not be a children's book. It is vile.
Here's how Abraham Lincoln, who was not a churchgoer, but who was steeped in the Bible, described it. In regard to this great book, it is the best gift God has given to man. But
hold on, let's find out. No need to wonder, just loaded up our question gun. Let's go answer hunting. Did Abraham Lincoln really say, in regard to this great book, the Bible, it is the best gift God has given to man? What's the rest?
But for it, we could not know right from wrong.
But for it, we could not know right from wrong. I'm looking this up, but before I do, I want to say I don't give a fuck what Abraham Lincoln said about this. The Bible is a vile fucking book, dude. It has some really ugly shit in there, and it's disgusting and evil through most of it, and the good parts are contradicted by the bad parts. It's literally impossible to use the Bible as a basis for our morality, but even if it were possible, it would be evil to use it as a basis for our morality because it's so full of evil shit. Regarding what Lincoln said, this is a real quote apparently. Lincoln's religious views were complex and evolved throughout his life. He was almost certainly gay, for example, and that does not jive with modern day Christianity. As a young man, he was known as the village atheist, and he may have had trouble taking the Bible as literal truth, though he had no trouble reading it. He never joined a church and rarely attended regular services, but he did study it extensively as literature and moral philosophy. So there you go. It's irrelevant what Lincoln thought of the Bible, because the Bible is impossible to use as your moral guide anyway.
And all things most desirable for man's welfare are to be found portrayed in it. As Lincoln suggests, the Bible is the moral foundation on which Western civilization is built.
That's incorrect.
And a point of
Western civilization, quote unquote, or more specifically, the United States and the moral system that we have set up here is built upon the belief or is built upon this concept. Your right to swing your fist ends at the tip of my nose. You can swing your fist anywhere you want except for right here, because then you're not exercising your rights, you're violating my rights. It's built on bodily autonomy and utilitarianism at the end of the day.
Shared reference. Up until the 1960s, you could cite a Bible story and most people knew exactly what you were talking about. Everyone from Shakespeare to Dickens to Franklin Roosevelt made great use of Bible stories to communicate their themes. We're losing that connection. And that is
as if people don't know Bible stories today.
A terrible shame and a profound cultural loss.
Why? The Bible is a vile fucking book full of terrible stories and an evil God. Really, I mean, knock this around for a minute. What good God would order the genocides of multiple races of people? What good God would order that? The Amalekites, the Hittites, the Canaanites, you know where you'll find them today? Nowhere. They're dead. But if you did find them today, you would be morally obligated to murder them yourself, because he ordered the death of every man, woman, and child in Canaan. Every one of them. What moral lesson do you think you're learning from the Bible that is worth anything?
If you don't have some biblical literacy, you can't fully appreciate the powerful words of Martin Luther King, for example. Only if you know the story of Moses can you fully appreciate King's poetic vision of having seen the promised land.
Okay, I think I agree. But Malcolm X saw that as a problem, for example, Malcolm X, and believed that Christianity was another kind of aspect of colonialism. And for that reason was a member of the Nation of Islam, which is not Islam. It's its own separate thing that's psychotic that he eventually had to hide from. But the point is, he was a member of other organized religions for a while because he believed that Christianity was imposed upon black people when they were brought to America. And he views that as a bad thing. And I view that as a bad thing too. So yeah, it's hard to operate in the United States without being a Christian or fully understanding Christian stories, because it's such a heavily Christian culture nowadays. But that's a bad thing, not a good thing.
Of the Bible, Yale theologian George Lindbeck famously said, "There was a time when every educated person, no matter how professedly unbelieving or secular, knew the actual text from Genesis to Revelation. Our goal should..."
I don't think that's true, but okay. I know the Bible better than 99% of the United States. Probably not better than the chat or better than the viewers, because you guys are like invested in this as I am, but certainly better than the average idiot. And I don't know the text from Genesis to Revelation. I know the history of it. I know a lot of the stories. I grew up with the stories, but I can't cite the text like word for word, all of it.
Be to get back to that kind of biblical literacy. And it starts with our children, your children.
They're telling people to indoctrinate children, is what's happening right now. They're telling people to brainwash children. Seriously. How would you feel if an atheist came along and said, we need to indoctrinate our children in the ways of Karl Marx? No more Bible. We need to get them like when they're young. Get them when they're young. How would you feel about that? Probably outraged, if I had to guess. Because, you'd view that as childhood indoctrination, right? Why is this not childhood indoctrination? What you're doing right now. It is. He doesn't have a problem with childhood indoctrination. He has a problem with people who do it in opposition to his child indoctrination.
Read them a Bible story tonight. Who knows? You might learn a few things too. I'm Johnny Moore for Prager University.
That was vile. What? I don't even know what else to say about that. That was just fucking stupid.
No document in world history so changed the world for the better as did the Ten Commandments.
I completely disagree. The first commandment contradicts the First Amendment. You cannot have both simultaneously. On top of that, like half of them aren't even followed today.
Western civilization, the civilization that developed universal human rights, created women's equality, ended slavery.
Wait, you suddenly think all those things are good? That's interesting, because like half the shit you put out is about how those things are bad, first of all. And second, Western civilization created all that stuff? I don't know about that. I will give you this. The United States is a much better place to live than certain other places. Certain African countries that are very corrupt and things like that. I'll give you that much. And the United States has been a great place to live for a long time. Even under Trump, I think it's a better place to live than many African countries. But Western civilization, quote unquote, was not created, or the things that you list as Western civilization were not created by those things, or by those places necessarily. And he also, Dennis Prager does not respect those things.
Created parliamentary democracy, among other unique achievements, would not have developed without them.
Parliamentary democracy wouldn't have developed without Western civilization. What does he mean by that? I mean, Western civilization is often just like a dog whistle for white people. Is that what he means? White people invented those things?
As you will see when each of the Ten Commandments is explained, these commandments are as relevant today as when they were given over 3,000 years ago.
I'm sorry, wait a minute. Was he saying the Ten Commandments are Western civilization and are responsible for, like, women's rights and stuff? What? That is the most ass-backward thing I think I've heard in a hot fucking minute. Also, Vsauce isn't gone and Michael still makes videos. That's true, but the last one he made was like 4 months ago. Otherwise, he just does shorts, and that's sad. I would like to see him do a lot more than just shorts. Just a reminder, I would really appreciate it if you guys checked out my Patreon. If you're not going to donate, you don't have to, but follow me there at the very least. owenmorgan.com/Patreon. Just in case something happens with the government or whatever. It would be really good if you had some way to connect with me and my content. I'm really concerned about that, and maybe you should consider that for other creators too.
In fact, they're so relevant that the Ten Commandments are all that is necessary to make a good world, a world free of tyranny and cruelty. Imagine for a moment a world in which there was no murder or theft. In such a world, there would be no need for...
Right, I was going to mention, you shall have no other gods before me. That's commandment number 1. That directly contradicts the First Amendment, which says that we can have, any religion that we want. I think that's fucking stupid. And for that reason alone, I would throw out the 10 Commandments completely. They're fucking worthless. You shall not make idols or graven images. That's fucking stupid. I should be able to draw whatever the fuck I want. If I want to draw the Prophet Muhammad, I should be allowed to draw the Prophet Muhammad. And I am. In direct contradiction to the First Amendment, my freedom of speech dictates that I am allowed to draw whatever I want to draw. Number 3, you shall not take the Lord's name in vain. Dumb as dog shit. Again, violation of the First Amendment. I can say whatever the fuck I want. Number 4, remember the Sabbath day, keep it holy. We don't do that as Christians. Why the fuck would you think that? How does that help Western civilization? How did that free women or slaves or whatever? Number 5, honor your father and your mother. Okay, well, that's just good advice that's existed since time immemorial, and I didn't need the 10 Commandments to tell me that. Number 6, you shall not murder. Again, this has existed in every society since before Christianity or Judaism existed. Everybody knows that to live in a society, you can't murder your neighbors or whatever. So 10 Commandments are now 6-0. Number 7, you shall not commit adultery. Don't tell me what I can... don't tell me what I can and can't do. This shouldn't be a legal commandment. I shouldn't be legally punished for committing adultery. My love life is my fucking business, not yours. Number 8, you shall not steal. Again, good advice that literally every single culture throughout human history has always said is bad. I didn't need the 10 Commandments for that. Number 9, you shall not bear false witness. I should be allowed to lie. You telling me you're going to legally punish me? You're going to throw me in jail for telling a lie? Number 10, you shall not covet. That is just the basis of capitalism. How the fuck am I supposed to operate in a capitalist society without wanting other things? That's 10-0. The 10 Commandments are fucking worthless. What are you talking about? How did that free women and allow them to vote? How did that even establish representative democracy in any way, shape, or form? How did that free slaves? It didn't. It did literally nothing that he's listing right now.
For armies or police or weapons, men and women and children could walk anywhere at any time of day or night without any fear of being killed or robbed. Imagine further a world in which no one coveted what belonged to their neighbor.
Again, how the fuck are we supposed to operate in a capitalist society without that?
A world in which children honored their mother and father and the family unit thrived. A world in which people obeyed the injunction not to lie. The recipe for a good world is all there in these 10 sublime commandments.
Again, no, it isn't. Why didn't you stick the Sabbath in there? Why didn't you stick graven image in? Why didn't you mention having no other gods before me? Why did you only mention like 4 of the 10 commandments? Because the others are complete nonsensical trash, of course, that's why. And he knows that. First few commandments are an ego trip. It's all about God. How the hell can this be taken seriously, right? What the fuck? Additionally, I knew that the first commandment violated the First Amendment, but I didn't realize that the other 4 also violate the First Amendment. I didn't even think about that. The first 3. No other gods before me, no graven idols or images, and you shall not take the Lord's name in vain. The first 3 commandments violate the First Amendment. You cannot have both.
But there is a catch. The 10 Commandments are predicated on the belief that they were given by an authority higher than any man, any king, or any government. That's why the sentence preceding the 10 Commandments asserts the following. God spoke all these words. You see, if the 10 Commandments...
I bet he did, totally.
Commandments, as great as they are, were given by any human authority, then any person could say, who is this man Moses? Who is this king or queen? Who is this government to tell me how I should behave? Okay, so why is God indispensable to the 10 Commandments? Because, to put it as directly as possible, if it isn't God who declares murder wrong, murder isn't wrong.
That's nonsense. Societies throughout history, pre and post Christianity and Judaism, have viewed murder as wrong. Christianity is not the first, or Judaism is not the first, by any stretch of the imagination, not even close.
Yes, this strikes many people today as incomprehensible, even absurd. Many of you are thinking, is this guy saying you can't be a good person if you don't believe in God?
I don't think anybody said that.
Let me respond as clearly as possible. I am not saying that. Of course there are good people who don't believe in God, just as there are bad people who do. And many of you are also thinking, I believe murder is wrong. I don't need God to tell me. Now, that response is only half true. I have no doubt that if you're an atheist and you say that you believe murder is wrong, you believe murder is wrong. But
he's saying, he's done like 6 of these videos, and he said the exact same thing in each. He believes if you believe murder is wrong, then it's because you're pulling from his religious perspective incorrectly.
Forgive me, you do need God to tell you. We all need God to tell us. You see, even if you figured out murder is wrong on your own, without God and the 10 Commandments, how do you know it's wrong?
Okay, he's talking about objective morality. Again, there is no objective morality. There's no such thing. It doesn't exist. Morality is built on our understanding of the world around us, built on our culture, our cultural expectations and values.
Not believe it's wrong. I mean, know it's wrong. The fact is, you can't, because without God, right and wrong are just personal beliefs.
Yep, that's correct. It's my personal belief that murder is wrong. And interestingly enough, it's the personal belief of nearly every other person in the United States and in the world, completely independently. It's because we have cultures that we grew up in that valued the idea that murder is wrong. It's not because the people in China had these holy books or that they had the Bible or whatever. People in China didn't have the Bible. In fact, the Bible is banned in China, I think, or it was for a very long time, if it isn't still. Chinese people view murder as wrong completely independently of the Bible. It has nothing to do with the Bible. How do you explain that exactly?
Personal opinions. I think shoplifting is okay. You don't. Unless there is a God, all morality is just opinion and belief.
Nope.
And virtually every atheist philosopher has acknowledged this.
It's all opinion and belief. I mean, he's simplifying it an awful lot here. It is subjective. It is not objective. And even if there is a God, it's not objective. Because you're picking and choosing which sections of the Old Testament to value and believe and follow. You're picking which commandments to follow. You know, you're not following the graven image commandment, for example. You don't think that one's very important, apparently. Why not? Why haven't you mentioned that one literally at all this entire time? The point is that he's picking and choosing even out of the 10 Commandments.
Another problem with the view that you don't need God to believe that murder is wrong is a lot of people haven't shared your view. And you don't have to go back very far in history to prove this. In the 20th century, millions of people in communist societies and under Nazism killed about 100 million people.
He said this in the previous one that he did. I'm not sure that that's an accurate number, but anyway, he's claiming that Nazism and communism were anti-Christian. He's correct about communism and the Soviet Union. They were anti-Christian, but Nazism was not anti-Christian. They were Christians. They even had their own denomination of Christianity called the Deutsche Christen, or the German Christians.
And that doesn't count a single soldier killed in war. So don't get too confident about people's ability to figure out right from wrong without a higher authority. It's all too easy to be swayed by a government or a demagogue or an ideology or to rationalize.
Yeah, no fucking shit. We're literally watching it unfold right in front of our eyes.
That the wrong you're doing isn't really wrong. And even if you do figure out what is right and wrong, God is still necessary. People who know the difference between right and wrong do the wrong thing all the time. You know why? Because they can. They can because they think no one is watching. But if you recognize that God is the source of moral law, you believe that he is always watching.
And so you're saying that Christians never do anything wrong? Is that what you're saying? That is obvious, complete nonsense.
So even if you're an atheist, you would want people to live by the moral laws of the 10 Commandments. And even an atheist has to admit that the more people who believe God gave them, and therefore they are not just opinion, the better the world would be.
Okay, hang on. An atheist has to admit what? One more time?
To live by the moral laws of the Ten Commandments. And even an atheist has to admit that the more people who believe God gave them, and
The more people who believe God gave the Ten Commandments,
therefore they are not just opinion, the better the world would be.
no, I don't have to admit that. That's fucking absurd. The Ten Commandments are trash. They're awful. The first three are about loving God and how it's like a requirement. You must love him. And it takes away personal liberty. I can't draw certain pictures. I can't say certain things. I can't do certain things. Bullshit. Don't tell me what I can and can't do like that. The Ten Commandments are the worst. I completely reject it.
In 3,000 years, no one has ever come up with a better system than the God-based Ten Commandments for making a better world, and no one ever will.
Nonsense. Thomas Jefferson came up with a great system. He was he was slandered as being an atheist. He was a deist. He probably was an atheist, but he was one of the founders of the Enlightenment movement. He believed that we can come to a better world, better conclusions about everything if we only use rationality, use our minds. And he was correct. He built the United States government around that idea, not around Christianity, but around secularism. We were the first secular constitution in human history on this scale. And it's done an incredible amount of good for us as a society, being secular, that is. This guy is a complete scumbag, just disgusting some of the shit that he said and did. Like, many of his arguments throughout this whole thing revolved around just scaring the shit out of people to try to force them to be Christian. And it was just disgusting, vile shit. Anyway, tell me what you think about it in the comments.